And for those of you that need to leave early, we will send this recording after the call. So again, our topic tonight, like LJ mentioned, food scarcity, food sourcing. We have several guest speakers. The first person up is going to be Sammy to walk us through what they've been up to in Bushwick with the Bushwick Mutual Aid Group that they are a part of. So Sammy, go for it.
Yeah, thank you everyone, all the amazing work that you're doing. So we were asked to share a little bit of what we have been doing, in particularly when in regards to food resource and distribution. We started getting a lot of calls and intakes at the very beginning, all at the same time, and then that demand started picking up a lot very quickly. So at the beginning, we had the very model of neighbor to neighbor, and we find the closest person to do a delivery run, and that volunteer will go to the supermarket, and then we will invoice and return that money back to the volunteer through reimbursement from the funding that we collected through our grassroots fundraising, and we hosted through a fiscal sponsorship. However, the more need, the more calls started coming and coming, hundreds of them. So then we just were faced with the idea of how can we move to a more sustainable or at least a process where we could do mass deliveries, because at some point we had over like 200 families, and it is casually, humanely impossible to just coordinate so many. And then that was the first part. And then the second part is we found out that buying in the supermarket is one of the most expensive things. So we spend so much money in the supermarkets. So Maria from Mil Mundos and a team of Bushwick Mutual Aid, that Maria is in the call, started putting our brains together, and we actually didn't came up with this. Hungry Monk, which is a star group church in Woodbine, have been doing this for years. And we visited their church and saw the model that they have. And they have been doing bulks for a long time. And that's the way that they have been able to save a lot of money and serve the large quantities, hundreds of thousands of people. So we visited them, and then we just find distributors, and then we compare prices between Restaurant Depot, Troopers, Driscoll's, and I'm happy to share this later, distributors of supermarkets, and actually buy the same list that we were buying in the supermarket, but in a large quantity. And we did last Sunday everything in 100. So if we do in the supermarkets, we have narrowed down. Maria had narrowed down a list of things that will get us to $50, because that was the limit that we were giving each family. So in the supermarket, we found a list that when we send volunteers, we just send them a very pre-made list of articles that will get them to 50, including things that most families always ask for: bread, rice, beans, tomatoes, onions, bananas, and cereal. So we took that list, ordered that bulk, and then it sounds very intimidating, and it is way less complicated that you would think if you have the money, right? And that's one of the issues as well. How do we sustain this in the long run? Just an idea, we did 10 families in a supermarket for $700. And then we did 100 families for $3,500. So it's a saving of 7 times a saving by doing bulk. But I saw from the notes from last time, yes, there's challenges. You need first someone who is willing to put $4,000, $2,000 in their car. You need a space to store this, and also sacrifices in the list of items of things that you will do. For example, this wouldn't help you do milk, eggs, and stuff that needs refrigeration if the storage place that you're using does not have the appropriate refrigeration. And the space that we have, it has fridges, but we're not using them because they're not working. So using the fridges will take into the electricity bill, which we don't have money to pay them for the fridges. So we partner with the deli in the corner, who they can order eggs and milk, and that's how we were able to add those things and cross it to the distributor center. And then the volunteers, instead of going to the supermarket as they would do, they would just go to the distribution centers or the drivers and then take the food, or the family will come to us. So that's how we were able to save a lot of money in the past 2 weeks. And we are hopeful to continue doing that, because we're trying not to do hot meals, because we want to give families the largest possible amount of groceries where they can cook, and for a couple of days, a week or two. These are families of 6-8 people. So to the extent possible that we can accumulate all that groceries and do that, we're looking to do that. But we're very afraid of how long for this, people might be willing or able to donate, given the economic situation. So I think we have funding for 1 week less to do bulk. But if we do just deliveries in the supermarket, it will be like 3 days. So another of the challenges is that families might need to wait, right? We're doing this on Wednesdays from Mayday Space, where we get food from City Harvest and the Mayday Space team, and mostly vegetables and products, and we combine them with bags that Hungry Monk also gave us that has pottery and stuff. So Wednesday we combine that and we serve 75 families, and then on Sunday we do this large bulk buys. Another thing is that for these large distributors, they inflate some of the prices. So Maria also was very instrumental in negotiating those prices and matching those prices. Restaurant Depot is really cheap and has very high quality stuff. So we were able to push the distributor to match those prices. We didn't go with Restaurant Depot because it poses other challenges, like you have to pick up stuff, so you need a truck, you need a volunteer, and also you cannot order in advance. You have to go in person and see whatever they have left. But if that could be an option for other groups that want to buy bulk the same day and go distribute. And yeah, I just don't want to keep talking. It's just, I'm sure people will have questions. So
Yeah, thank you, Sammy. And for folks that do have questions, we do have a section at the end after our speakers talk to ask them questions. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to our next guest, which is Kiana. Go for it, Kiana from Food Justice.
Hi, sorry. Yes, hi everybody. Thanks for having me. My name is Kiana. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the special projects consultant at Just Food. I used to be the executive director for a couple of years, for 3, and then before that, the CSA manager. So I'm happy to be here to kind of talk about really briefly what Just Food is doing in this like pivot, and how we connect to CSA and amplify the local supply chain. So it was great to kind of hear what Sammy was like touching on, because a lot of what some of the struggles that he was mentioning around costs, food, even some of the other food partners like around anti-hunger, like City Harvest, something that we try to do at Just Food as a food justice nonprofit is, this has evolved over the last 25 years. In the last 3 years, we shifted it to be more an equity-driven organization, and really trying to connect to our solidarity economy principles and models and partners that really kind of speak to that hold food justice as part of their work. So what we did was we have a network, the city's largest network of CSAs, which is Community Supported Agriculture, which is a direct-to-consumer model, long-standing history in solidarity economy work, where basically you're building relationships between a local regional farmer who is bringing food down to the community at peak season. So for about 22 to 25 weeks in the summer. Some do extended seasons like winter shares, spring shares and stuff. Most people know CSA like during the summertime. And the typical model is the farmer comes down to the city, harvest the food within, with their workers within 24 hours, bring it down. And then there is a community group organized already that's volunteer driven that connects with that farmer, handles membership, finds a location, helps with distribution, and that happens once a week, usually at the same site. And the payments are done in advance because local farmers are diversified farmers, and the bulk of their expenses come at the beginning of the season. So the model is kind of based on most of the money being starting to be collected and given to the farmers for when they need it the most in order to buy seeds, to buy equipment, to establish their labor force, and then and also to know how much food to be able to crop plan and make sure that food has a home. So there's a minimal amount of like excess crop or surplus, and things that you hear very differently in terms of say food banks and pantries where they're benefiting or getting donations from grocery stores or farmers, or typically larger scale farmers, around like excess crops and getting food before it's waste to folks. This is a model that is really trying to increase farm viability, increase healthy food access, and get it into communities further than usual. And so our work at Just Food has been not just trying to support this proven model. Again, it's something we've been doing for 25 years. It's been in some form in the country, in different, maybe parts of the country, in other places and spaces. It has like history, with Black farmers. It has history with Japanese farmers in Japan, are some of the earliest models. But the collective price that the farmer is able to do and identifying what crops to grow helps keep the costs low. So while the full cost of a share can average between 500, up to 650 for some for a season, that's, again, over a course of a couple of weeks, when you break it down by week, it's usually anywhere from $20 to $25. And you're getting about 7 to 10 seasonal items. Historically, it's been based on a vegetable share, but more and more CSAs have farmers that are either growing other products like fruit or dairy, so you can get like eggs and other value-added products. But more and more CSAs are trying to meet the whole need and the whole meal of folks, and partnering, if they don't grow it themselves, with like-minded nearby farmers, where they aggregate their food. So there are a lot more CSAs that you're able to have options around a vegetable share, a fruit share, a bread share, eggs, dairy, meat, kombucha, even in some cases, flowers and stuff. So it's all about supporting local farm viability, keeping, the land, growing on the land well, being good environmental stewards, and then wanting to get that food into the community. And then with Just Food and trying to increase the equity within that model, it's been, how do we continue to engage diverse farmers of different, we focus on small to mid-scale, organic, certified, or growing organic farmers, but also are we finding family farms? We try to work with family farms, folks of color, LGBTQ farmers, and other like smaller scale farmers. Historically, some of them have been, white farmers, but what we continue to do is lift up our social justice missions and really make sure they're good to land people and wanting to come into communities more. So, this network right now is about, last year we had about 30 plus farmers supplying about 120 sites throughout the 5 boroughs. So of course, in the age of COVID, some of those sites might shift or look different, but what we've been doing as an organization is continuing to find ways to support this known supply chain So getting food into the community, getting making sure that the farmers are able to find the right, a good price to keep the shares that they're able to, so they're able to afford to either offer other shares at a lower price, offer shares for free, or donate when they're able and possible to do so, and connecting them to members. So we help increase like CSA promotion and help folks get connected. We help folks, community folks, start CSA sites, CSA models, and help train them so they know what are some of the best practices in order to run a CSA site. Some of our sites have been, as early as a year ago and as long as 20, 25 years ago. And we also try to offer capacity with the farmers to kind of hear what their needs are and being met. And so now, with everything kind of going on, the summer season doesn't usually start until June, but the money and the membership is a drive that happens now. So what we've been trying to do is hear from folks where the farmers are at, what are some of their challenges on their farm, how are they meeting that, how are they addressing, social distancing measures, packing measures, additional costs, are they still able to identify labor to come down? And we're offering, resources and information to the core groups on how to continue to mobilize, how to build the measures and safety distance around pickup and delivery. Do they have the opportunity to figure out how to not just to add new members, but maybe get their shares to other folks? So are we starting to have conversations around homebound deliveries, or not, if you're not able to pick it up yourself, how does this food get to other folks? And continuing to try to figure out sourcing money, funds that are able to come in and either help coordinate with core groups. So as an organization, what we're continuing to try to do is identify money and partners that understand the principles, want this food to get out to further and further out in the communities. And is there sources of money that it's a matter of identifying folks to join the CSA, and then they get to still be part of this existing community as well as get food and be connected? Or is there, and that again is a proven model that then you're able to get in and it's really efficient and known, like these are things that people have been doing for years and are trained to do? Or is there other pots of money that could maybe be seen as institutional purchasing, where we're working directly with the farmers? So it's still direct to the farmers, but sometimes the conversation can start with the farmer and say, like, there's a certain contract, a certain amount of money, and is this an easier way to kind of get food into the community or build a relationship?
Yeah,
So,
I just want to interrupt right here.
Yeah.
Just because I got a message that one of our next speakers that was later on and actually needs to hop on.
Oh,
So
okay.
can we transition to them? And then if folks have any questions for what Kiana just shared, please either drop them in the chat or send them right to Lucas, and we'll get back to the things that Kiana was sharing.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
thank you, Kiana. With that, Alexis, please take over and talk a little bit about the groups that have been working citywide to solve this issue around food scarcity. Go for it, Alexis.
Sorry to cut you off early, Diana. I apologize about that. So I have been working primarily in East Brooklyn in collaboration with Mayday State and with Mutual Aid in regards to being able to set up a food bag distribution on the east side of Brooklyn, where we organize the harvest of pallets a week over with 9 food. And we're looking forward to transitioning. So,
Hey, Alexis, your audio is really, really choppy.
okay.
That's
Let me take
way
it.
better.
I'm gonna go off. Is this better?
Way better. Thank you.
Not a problem. So yeah, we are transitioning to make the sites in which we're servicing independent by coming up with a toolkit, organizing train-the-trainers, where we're helping them create their own food bag assembly, Bushwick Mutual Aid and Mayday Space was able to transition two of their sites to being independent. So we're looking forward to doing that and getting out of the way. But bigger than that, what we're looking to do in 3 to 6 months is a conversation that Kiana was leading last year, for the past few years, in regards to a food hub model in East Brooklyn. Ariana from New York City Mutual Aid and Quito and I have had a ongoing weekly call at 4:30 on Thursdays to have that conversation going in regard to what it looks like for us to have an emergency decentralized food hub across Brooklyn and all the boroughs to be able to have mutual aid groups and groups that are in need of food to be able to tap into, which can be a connection for some of the farmers that Kiana was just talking about, where these food hubs can be bringing in and purchasing food directly from the farmers, and the mutual aid groups can then be picking up from the hubs. So right now we've identified Bushwick, Brownsville, and Red Hook as pilot areas. So if you're working anywhere near those areas or looking to plug into a system like this, please reach out to me, Quito, or Mariana, which are also on the line. And if you're looking to work more closely on a decentralized hub and spoke food hub model, please feel free to reach out. I left my information in the chat. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Alexis. So up next, I'm going to pass it over to Cheyenne to talk a little bit about what the Crown Heights Mutual Aid Group has been up to with their own CSA pilot. Go for it, Cheyenne.
Hey folks, so Cheyenne, she and her, Crown Heights Mutual Aid, and I'm going to put in to the chat a document. So basically we were interested in partnering with CSAs because same thing, everybody's going to grocery stores, spending a ton of money. The money goes into these chains and then gets sucked out of the community. And it's not building anything for us in a longer term way. So we wanted to see, could we start to pivot to CSAs? The thing I just want to highlight for folks is that the time is like right now. Unfortunately, it's like pretty urgent that if you're interested in working with CSAs that you get in touch with them now, because they're open and their dates are closing. Some of them may open again, and there's a bit of negotiation, but just to put that out there, because we started exploring this and we didn't quite realize how short our window was. And so our pilot is smaller than we had planned for it to be. So learn from our mistake, get on it if you're interested in this. So basically, if you want to work with CSAs the way that we went about it, we went to the Just Food website, justfood.org. There's a list of all the CSAs in the city. I've got a list of questions here that you can check out the different websites, populate a spreadsheet so that you understand a bit about what they have available. And then it's the calling and the emailing them for questions more like, how could they scale? What do they need to scale? Are they going to be able to offer delivery? Kind of checking in where they are. A lot of the CSAs are really slammed right now. They're experiencing a lot of interest. And as we just discovered in Crown Heights, some of the farmers that are producing for these CSAs are getting more interest very locally to them. So like on Long Island. And that means that they don't have as much to send to Brooklyn at this point. So just a heads up about that. So it's a lot of research. If you've got volunteers, it shouldn't be too much of a problem. And then after you've asked some relevant questions about the kind of partnership that you think you can imagine, whether you've just got money, you got labor, maybe you've got a space, whatever it might be, maybe you just have people that would be interested in purchasing shares, you can put together a proposal, run some kind of a pilot and refine it. And I've included also our pilot proposal, which is basically pretty simple. It's 3 ideas. It's buy a share for yourself. You might be thinking, how does that possibly deal with emergency food relief? Well, it gets at 2 things. Like, one is that a lot of people participating in Crown Heights Mutual Aid are not actually availing themselves of the so-called services of the group. So there's a divide between helped and helper that is race and class lines, of course. And we wanted to explore ways that we could be more in it together with more mutualism and more reciprocity. So getting our food from the same place and tying that together in some way. So we were encouraging folks to purchase. We were encouraging folks to purchase a share for somebody else that Crown Heights could then distribute to. And we're working out how that's going to work because we're in the middle of building this thing as we go. And then the other thought was you can, donate to subsidize a share for somebody else. So get your own groceries here, and then also maybe you can be part of moving those into the community in some way, shape, or form, whether that's taking it to somebody on your block or participating in a larger distribution. It's a pretty simple idea. I will say that calling up the different CSAs, they were kind of like, what are you talking about? Like, who are you people and what do you want? And there was a lot of confusion. So if you can get people on the phone, that was the best thing, because email, folks just like really didn't understand what we were trying to do. They hadn't necessarily thought about it, but they were excited because they actually, they need to sell shares and they need volunteers. Sorry, got a thing happening. And they also really were looking for ways to build relationships in the community with residents that are going to be there for a minute. So anyway, they also, a lot of them offer, EBT, subsidized shares and the like. So many of them already had a concern about racial equity in particular. And we were offering an opportunity to help support that in a meaningful way. So that's all I have on that. I will pass back. Thank you.
Thanks, Cheyenne. All right, so now I'm going to pass it over to Marissa. Go for it, Marissa.
Hi, y'all. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to see some of you here. It's so nice that this call is happening. I'm glad people are thinking about food and more folks are talking about innovative ways to get more food to more people that are in need on the regular. So I work in Red Hook, Brooklyn, and I'm working with a local mutual aid group that's evolved called Red Hook Relief. And we're working directly with the Red Hook Farms, as well as the Red Hook Initiative, to scale a current fresh food box model that's actually a free, Grow NYC's free fresh food box program. So that's a really incredible program that the Red Hook Farm has been piloting for the last year. And so this is year 2, and we're really just trying to get that food out to more people. We delivered 230 boxes today to folks in need. And so, we've just found ways to collaborate with existing organizations in Red Hook, and are, working with Alexis and other folks to try and get more food really just into the neighborhood. So we're also working with local businesses to see what kind of fridge space we can use or source, and really just bring the food right to the people. And we're kind of collaborating with other nonprofit organizations that maybe haven't done this work in the past, but want to help at this point in time. So one thing we're thinking about a lot is sustainability of that model, sustainability of volunteer labor, and how to continue this work at this scale in a neighborhood like Red Hook that has constant, folks who have constant food needs. And so I'm also working with Mutual Aid NYC and have been co-hosting this call on Thursdays with Alexis and Quito, where we've just been holding space for folks who work in food systems and have been thinking about these issues in supply chain and demand for a long time. And a lot of those folks are urban farmers or educators. Some of those folks just want to get involved. With that said, we're trying to figure out what the best way to kind of move that group forward is, whether that's a weekly call or an email list or something else. I can also drop in the chat. We have a spreadsheet going. If you'd like to join the email list, that call is open to everyone. I think that's all for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marissa. So with that, I will now pass it over to Annabelle to share quickly about a sharing local project that they're a part of. Go for it, Annabelle.
Thanks, Josh. So I'll share, thank you so much to everybody as well for sharing your efforts. It's really amazing work that everybody's doing. And I'll just drop in the chat, we're doing something that is pretty similar to what a bunch of you are saying, where we're doing small groups of neighbors purchasing groceries directly from distributors. And all credit to the other folks on my team who couldn't be here to present tonight, but here's a little how-to guide that we put together of how to get a group of a dozen of your neighbors and start ordering food yourselves. And feel free to add comments, ask questions, etc. in the document. Thanks, everybody. Passing it back to Josh. Thanks, Josh and Mayday.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so now we have about 10 minutes to take questions for any of what was shared from our speakers. So the way we're going to do this is you're either will raise your hand, and in order to raise your hand, there's a button you click. If you click participants or chat at the bottom right, to the right of your screen, there'll be at the bottom there a raise the hand function. If you can't figure that out, please send the question to Lucas and he will take stack. And we will begin, since one question has already been submitted to Lucas. But to quickly answer this question that Amber just brought up in the chat, we are taking notes. This is being recorded. The chat gets saved, so we will follow up. Okay, so the first question is going to come from Jonah. Go for it, Jonah. I will unmute you. Or go for it.
Cool. I guess it's maybe more of just a comment and a lot of amazing ideas. And thank you all so much to everyone who's presented. It's really cool to see that a lot of people are thinking about this right now. We at Flatbush United are kind of moving in this direction as well. And we're, I just had a really great conversation with the people at Grow NYC Wholesale, who are also a great resource. If anyone else wants to connect with them, I can put a link in the chat. And yeah, I wonder if there's like a way that we could kind of compile all of the different resources and outreach that people are doing to various different farmers and CSAs and communities in one place.
Great, thanks, Jonah. Let's see. Any other folks have questions? And again, this portion of the call, we have 5 minutes left. So please either raise your hand, drop it in the chat, or send it over to Lucas. And I'll see if anyone has raised their hand. All right, well, while we're getting questions, I'll just invite any of our speakers and guests, if there's any other things you wanted to say that you maybe didn't get to say, yeah, I'll open the floor to our speakers as well to chime in.
Hi, I was just gonna add, I mean, I think as you can see, there's a lot of need, and there's you know, a few options in terms of connecting with farmers and scale and stuff. I think, you know, there's Grow NYC, there's Common Market, there's, you know, regional local farmers, and there's other anti-hunger group folks. I mean, if people are interested in having like transparency and direct relationship with farmers and kind of supporting regional work, I think it's really important to kind of work with, you know who your farmer is, and working at a scale and being able to build those relationships. And so, some models offer some transparency, and others are able to offer more direct relationships. So I think when you're thinking about where to get food and how to get food, you know, also thinking about what is this long-term relationship or longer-term relationship that you want to have with who's growing this food, where this food is coming from, how far is it, and are they able to kind of work with the immediate need that you're trying to address in your community as well. Also, you know, things that have been coming up that are always important is around cultural relevancy and items, and having that kind of choice in your share of produce and other products too. So sometimes local farmers at a certain scale are able to kind of pivot a lot more quickly and work with immediate need, or the numbers that they have to meet, they're able to kind of manage because they're able to add new sites and shares to existing routes where, other groups, just have higher thresholds and are going to want you to meet a minimum. Or you're not going to really know where that food came from. You might know it's from the state or the region, but it might come from other places too.
Great, thanks, Kiana. So there's a series of questions that came up in the chat, so I'll name them, and then either any one of our speakers, including you, Kiana, can answer them. So the first question is the CSA partnership only possible for summer, spring? How might this apply to other seasons? The second question is about shared storage spaces and local business owners reacting to requests to share their fridges. And then Betsy's asking about our food recipients also needing hand sanitizer. So I'll leave it to any of you to take any of those questions.
Yeah, I would say in terms of like seasonal food, most farmers, the bounty is going to be in the spring, summer, right? They're growing now and it will be available. A lot of farmers do extend their seasons, so you can have local options. Some of the bigger groups like Grow NYC work with farmers outside of our region in the off season, so they're able to kind of meet a volume and get food from other places. But local farmers, the ones that we work with, the majority of them are growing either year round or mostly year round. And I have a contact that I can add to the chat box around hand sanitizer. Is positioned or transition to making hand sanitizer.
Great, thanks. Kiana, you're freezing a little bit, so I'm going to move on to the next question. So let's see, we have from LJ, curious how groups are assessing needs in their neighborhoods. How are you knowing who to prioritize? Would love for groups to share on how they're doing that. So that sounds like a question that might be for mutual aid groups on the ground. And you can go, if you're representing a group, yeah, go for it, Hannah. And then after Hannah, if there's another group, just unmute yourself after Hannah's done. But take it away, Hannah.
Hey everyone, I'm Hannah from Stay Strong. Just to briefly answer this question about how we're assessing need, Stay Strong is considering moving to a bulk purchase model. So we've been looking at both which items we should be trying to continue to have for our recipients, as well as sort of need categories. And what we found, honestly, is that over 85% of the people who are reaching out to us and we are doing grocery delivery for are either elderly, immunocompromised, or disabled. And so once someone is homebound and without food, we're not really able to do any additional prioritization beyond that. At different points, we've considered just restricting need or prioritizing need from people who are homebound, but we eventually discovered that nearly everyone we're serving is unable to leave the house. And so we're just going in order. And then more broadly, in terms of the types of groceries that we're sourcing, we did some analysis, like data science analysis of all of our grocery lists to try and figure out what the top requests are from our neighbors. And we found the top request is chicken. Like more than 80% of our recipients are requesting chicken. And so I'd be really interested in talking to any other mutual aid groups that are trying to source things beyond produce, because produce seems to be pretty far down the list of what our recipients in Bed-Stuy are asking for, and we're really committed to trying to meet their needs as they've expressed them this far.
Thanks, Hannah. Super helpful. So there was a question in the chat from Matthew for Sammy, and if Sammy, if you're not there, maybe we can go to someone else, but I'll give you the chance, Sammy. So yeah. Matthew asked, does partnering with a CSA and buying in bulk mean that the need intake process needs to shift to limit the kinds of items folks can put on their shopping list?
Yes, but I think it's a misunderstanding. So we're not doing CSA. We're doing distributors of actual supermarkets. So if that explained the question. So we still take in our intake process the list of specific needs of every family, but we're doing the bulk grocery for the most part. But for cases that are more particular, whether that's medicine or baby supplies, then we try to take those families out of the bulk system and do it with an individual volunteer that just go and buy the specific items. Or now we got a donation from a supermarket that is gonna give us gift cards, so we will do that. But yeah, we take the list, but um, we from the intake process we started making the expectations, because before we asked the person what exactly do you need or do you want, so people were expecting like that particular. Now we're telling them we're gonna deliver something, it's a whole bulk, so but you still need something specific, and then we take it down, if that answered the question. So it is a way that we're trying to balance being able to serve as much as families as possible in a less time, like in less than a week, versus adding a very specific thing that they might want, like strawberries or fruits or grapes. So yeah, so we are doing that kind of in bulk, and then in that list adding as much as possible things that are most of the families request.
Thank you, Sammy. So I will now pass it over to Carlin from Corona, who has a question. Corona Queens, go for it, Carlin.
Hi. Yeah, so I'm part of Corona Courier, and we're a group of cyclists and a few people with cars trying to help with delivery needs all over, because we've got people all over. And I'm just curious how other groups and orgs are doing their intake. And basically, I guess, Hannah, you spoke a little bit to this in terms of like analyzing your requests, but yeah, are orgs finding ways to fulfill all of the requests? What is the turnaround time looking like? I'm curious about things like that. Yeah.
Cool. So question on intake. Hannah, do you want to take that since you were called on specifically?
Sure, I can share what Bed-Stuy Strong is doing. I don't necessarily think we've got it all figured out, but it's something we think a lot about. So the way that intake broadly works at Bed-Stuy Strong is that people give us a call, and then we have volunteers who call them back. Our backlog is over a week right now, and the main reason for that is not a limitation on the ability to call people back, but a financial limitation on the ability. We believe that once we have taken a grocery list from someone, that's a commitment to provide food, and we don't want to make commitments that we are not sure that we'll be able to fulfill financially. So that's one of the reasons I know some people have heard me talk over the last couple of weeks about this, that we are slowly transitioning to a bulk purchasing model, like what Sammy and others have talked about. I know many groups are facing this right now. We are going in order in terms of calling people back. It's imperfect, but typically people don't leave a lot of information in their messages. And so it's difficult to get sort of like additional info in there. And then once we call people back, if we find out that they are like at immediate risk of running out of food or currently don't have food in the home, then we do prioritize their request. And it typically gets fulfilled within 24 hours in my experience. So not perfect. We do have like pretty extensive scripts for intake. We're happy to share those, as well as sort of technical processes for tracking this kind of stuff. We've received over 5,000 calls at this point, and done about 73,000 meals worth of deliveries. So the tech piece has allowed us to scale, but in terms of like being able to fulfill need, I don't think anyone has that figured out. This is a pretty unprecedented situation.
Great.
Amazing, thank you. Yeah, I'm just basically curious what it's looking like for everyone, but I think it is kind of same situation. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Carlin, for the question, and Hannah for responding. So we are close to time, and we always allow 5 to 10 minutes for announcements. Before we transition to announcements, I just want to thank our speakers and guests for the wealth of information. This is being recorded, so we will send this out. So just want to thank you all again for representing your groups and sharing the wealth of resources.